Subsequent to the completion of our mission in '87, we prepared for what turned out to be a very special event in the life of the Parchi. The decision had been made to refuel and to cut the ship in half and to put a 100-foot section into the ship that would even expand the capability of the ship more than it had previously had. And so for the period of time from the early part of 1987 until I left command in May of 1988, we in fact were in dry dock, and we were going through a process of actually cutting the ship in two sections, separating the two sections, and being ready for the insertion of this additional 100-foot section. It turns out that the individual that I had mentioned to you, Ben Wackendorf, who had been in my company as a midshipman, he took over in May of '88, and he ended up having to spend 3 more years finishing that particular maintenance activity and getting the ship back together, getting the crew prepared, and doing all the training necessary to then send that ship out for its subsequent additional missions, which it performed through about 2006. Ultimately was decommissioned. So it was actually, I think it wasn't 2006. It was about 2004, I think, is when it was ultimately decommissioned. But it ended up serving the Navy for 30 years of active service. That was the only ship that had that particular expansion done to be able to support its operations.
Okay.
And partly it was done as a result of the fact that there was a need to modify some of the mission capabilities that it would have as a result of that, and this was a significant improvement to those particular capabilities. But it was a fascinating process, a very technically challenging process to cut a ship in half, and then it's one thing to build it from scratch. It's another thing to take a ship that's already operational and cut it in half and then expand its capabilities. So it was quite a team effort. And one of the experiences that we had that was, I think, probably worth recollecting is that the mission that we were doing in 1986, we were operating in some very sensitive areas of the world, and one of the things that actually took place was that at that particular time in the fall of 1986, President Reagan was actually meeting in a summit with Prime Minister Gorbachev of the Soviet Union, and so we were directed through message traffic while we were preparing for the operations to actually stand off from the area in which we were going to do our operations, which today is still a sensitive and classified subject. But the important aspects of that was that there was a desire to make sure that because they were having this particular summit in Reykjavik, Iceland, that there would not be an embarrassing internationally associated with any untoward activities that might have taken place while we would be operating in areas of the world that were sensitive. So as a result of that, we were held in abeyance until the summit completed, and then upon the completion of the summit, we were given authority to accomplish the mission. So it was quite a unique experience to be able to do that. But it just really puts into perspective the idea that instruments of the Navy, these ships and submarines that operate around the world, are instruments of diplomacy, and that senior political leaders of our country understand that they really do carry a very important responsibility, and that when you are allowing these ships to operate in sensitive areas of the world, that there really is an importance to think about the implications of what might occur should something go wrong. And of course, we've got many of those kinds of examples that are on the walls of our commemorative plaque wall here at the Navy Memorial that are really pay tribute to those individuals who were accomplishing those missions in support of our nation and the diplomatic goals of our country. So it was an interesting experience, an interesting responsibility, and interesting to be a part of that particular experience.